Greetings, geeks. Welcome to episode 412 of Geeks in Space. I am here today with two of my favorite people. We got ourselves a Mr. Rob Roseboom.
Hey there.
And we got ourselves a Chris DeBona.
Hello.
I forgot to update the tagline for the episode today, and I'm not going to monkey with that now, so it's going to go ahead and just be 3 hams will kill him, 3 hams will thrill him.
Yeah, so where did you get that one? I had a question about that.
Space Ghost.
Yeah, it was the Brack Show.
Oh, okay. I was never that into Space Ghost, to be frank.
Oh, that is your loss, my friend.
Yeah, there was like an impedance mismatch for a lot of Cartoon Network with me. Like, I just wasn't on that edge of stoned or something. I don't know.
The original Space Ghost Coast to Coast episodes, I recall us getting VHS tapes of those and watching them in the dorms because we did not have cable in our rooms in the dorms, so it was very difficult to gain access to such technology.
Advanced technology.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see. I got all kinds of fun stuff on the list. I had an article about the Trapper Keeper. Did either of you guys have a Trapper Keeper?
I had the cheaper version of the Trapper Keeper. So
Dude.
Trapper Keeper kids were rich.
One of my few joys as a child was picking out a new Trapper Keeper in 5th grade.
Right.
I remember I felt like I had arrived.
As the grandchildren of immigrants, I think that the Trapper Keepers were seen as, putting on airs or spending money on the wrong thing. I don't know, man.
I went to a private school. We had a high density of Trapper Keepers.
All Trapper, no Keeper.
No, it's an interesting article about it, but they were just talking about like the research that had that they put into building it and the test markets and when they knew it was going to be successful. It's an interesting little story. It's worth.
And I'll totally read it.
It's worth the thing. Nate put up. I shared it. Big corporation does shitty lock-in thing. GE requires you to buy a $55 RFID equipped water filter if you want ice.
Yes.
Yeah. So I should point out I've owned GE reverse osmosis systems, and they're like $350, and they didn't have that RFID stuff on it, but that's a fair amount of Lenovo style printer ink, HP printer ink lock-in right there.
Right.
I mean, I get what they're doing, but
you can't buy knockoff Keurig cups, and you can't fix your own car anymore.
Wait, you can't buy knockoff Keurig cups? I thought you could. Isn't that what an espresso is?
Well, that's the exact same version of this battle that's been going on for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if it wasn't for the special R&D that we've put into our disposable plastic cups that are filling the landfills all over the world, we wouldn't be able to continue to innovate in the disposable plastic cup market.
That's right. All I'm saying is if you need the water, you know that the $55 water filter is doing a better job than the $30, and I'm really glad that GE is providing the service for me of like helping me know which water filter I can trust and will make sure that my children don't get whatever the new coronavirus is.
Right. Well, at least you don't have to buy their cups, right? You can still drink their water, their purified water, in the container you wish.
So, but it's coming.
I've had to use the GE cup with my GE smart fridge, which uses, of course, the GE water filter. The really hard part about all this is the little GEs that are put on every piece of ice, and because it's in the mold. And then, when I replaced the filter, I was like, you know what? Do I really need a filter now? I put the old one back, and do you know what happened? It shut off my fridge. Defrosted everything. There was food rotting. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't understand. And you know what it was? It was the filter.
Wait a minute.
Use
So
your filter, or your fridge will die. No, I'm just making shit up now. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Because that would actually be pretty awesome if they would like destroy. We will destroy your freezer. Like, think about the destruction. Like, we're gonna so around here we lose power in my neighborhood like once a month for at least a few hours, and once a quarter we go maybe 24 hours without power. And every time there's like the discussion of what's in the bottom of the freezer and should we check it or just eat it. And usually it's just a matter of let's go and just eat it. But GE actually has the ability to hold your freezer hostage.
That's right. Uh-huh.
I kind of like that.
Give us our $55 or the hot dogs get it.
I can't
the
help
Sara
but
Lee's
notice that you
toast.
just bought a new tub of Haagen-Dazs. It sure would be a shame if the temperature of your freezer was 33 degrees.
I'm just saying, you need to let me wet my beak a little bit.
Yeah.
It
So
would
they
be
had
a shame if something should happen to your I don't know, whatever's in frozen food nowadays.
they had a
Frozen
thing
Doritos.
on YouTube moderators, Rob, and as a Google employee, Chris, you can feel free to not discuss if you want.
That Trapper Keeper is really something.
That's right. But they're apparently making YouTube moderators sign statements acknowledging PTSD is a possible side effect of moderating YouTube comments. And I got to tell you, man, in the last 10 years, I have really come to grips with the level of abuse that we suffered.
The more I hear about these stories, like from Facebook and now from YouTube, the more I think I really have a case.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to go after whatever Canadian private equity firm owns the remains of Slashdot?
I think it's still that cell phone company or whatever they are.
So Metro PCS brings you Slashdot.
Oof.
So the other thing I'd say is when I first started Cricket Wireless, when I first started at Google, we had to acknowledge that it was very likely that we'd be exposed to pornography and abusive images as part of the course of the job. You can't do search quality without bringing some quality, right? So yeah, there's some famous stories about like everyone getting together in the cafe and just iterating through banks of images to identify which are not so kosher and which ones are. So,
I mean, we like Rob, you've said this before. I've heard you say this, something to these effects, was like the days where you're happy that it's only goat sex. You're like, I only had to see goat sex today. It was a good day because that was the worst thing I saw.
And to our listener, you should not Google that. There you go. I'm helping you. Just don't Google it. It's great.
Yeah, eventually it becomes like just seeing a tree outside.
Yep.
You're like, oh, there's that again.
There's Tub Girl. It's like a beautiful sunset.
Stop.
My eyes have developed calluses as well as my soul.
All the young people who may have stumbled upon this podcast, just go forward about a minute and a half.
The thing that I was thinking about it though a lot, Rob, is that it's not even the shock imagery, because the shock imagery is certainly a part of it and it's a thing, but it's the hate.
Yeah,
like that's a different thing. Like shock is one thing, but there are people on the internet whose sole existence circles around hate, and it's hating on anything, and when that gets focused on you, whew.
For me, it wasn't even, just the usual trollish stuff. Although, you can only be called an asshole so many times before it gets to you, right? But for me, the worst was the fan fiction. The fact that someone would take time to write a story about what an asshole you are, what a terrible person you are. It's a whole nother level of commitment there.
They got competitive.
The GNAA form letters that used to have like the erotic fiction with the various members of the staff in all sorts of horrible sexual situations.
Yeah.
So anyway,
so decommissioning the broken satellite. This is actually a really important story. It's like, let's move on, please.
I'm sorry that my emotional damage from 15 years of trying to make the internet a better place is something that you just need to sweep under the carpet, Chris.
And that is exactly what I need to do for me to be able to move on. Instead of dealing with my emotions, I'm just going to repress them.
All right.
Yeah.
Nobody was in LA this weekend for the protest, right?
There was a protest? Of what?
There was a Save.org protest for ICANN. But I can't imagine that actually mattering. Too much money has already been contractually bound up.
Well, they said they were going to put it on hold or something. I don't know. I think that we're missing a very important thing, though. We haven't spoken about Picard.
I was saving that for the last thing because I figured we could probably go indefinitely on Picard.
I wrote notes.
Oh, wow. Well, I got some too. So before we go to Picard,
let's do the other stuff.
Sure, have you both adjusted your orbits because of the DirecTV satellite?
Yeah, I've been dodging DirecTV and Boeing satellites my entire space career.
What the thing that got me is, and I don't remember what the number was, but they said that they had something like 47 kilograms of propellant on that satellite.
Yeah.
And to my thinking, that seems like a pretty ludicrous amount of propellant to have on a satellite. And I guess I don't think too much about it, but that seems like a lot.
If I remember correctly, that one is the size of sort of a short bus, so you need a fair amount of power to do orbital corrections. And remember, what happens in big satellites is they have gyros, they have other mechanisms for keeping attitude and everything while in orbit, but the gyros can get saturated, right? Where you can't spin them any faster or in any other direction without throwing the satellite off in other directions, right? So what you have to do is you have to put a braking mechanism on your gyro, bring it back to like stillness, and while you're doing that, you're blowing propellant to account for it. And so these really big satellites, they have to carry a pile of propellant. I thought there was also a problem with the propellant system too, or something, where basically they do it like in the next X days, or they're not going to be able to do it when they fall into eclipse or something. And it's just it's a really interesting story, So yeah.
There was a related thing that I listened to on NPR recently, and they were talking about how we currently track satellites and how basically it's all the honor system and people just emailing each other. It's all right, well, cool. We emailed Elon. Let's hope that they adjust that satellite.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. The only other one that I had that before we get to what will undoubtedly consume the remaining 18 minutes of our time together, the hypertext coffee protocol made its resurfacing, and there's a good article with a good summary of some of the little bits connected to it. But there's some really it's a charming little story, and anything about the old RFC archive always gets me warm fuzzies, and the fact that this is an RFC. Sure. Stuff like that. It's charming internet history, which always is my sweet spot.
Yeah, there were so many that first coffee pot webcam. There's so many warm feelings I have for this story. So.
It hits all my buttons.
It does, man.
Okay. Did you watch the second episode of Ave5?
I have not watched the second episode. How was it?
It's better, but it's not good.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty rare miss for both Hugh Laurie and HBO, but I don't know if they're going to cover.
I don't really mind Wood's character, the guy in charge of,
Well, he's basically Jared in space.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a little bit harder than Jared, a little bit edgier, but
yeah,
a little less being put into prostitution as a foster child.
Right. But yeah, it's kind of run of the mill, not great.
So, before we talk about Picard,
all right,
I think too. But go ahead.
All right, no, I was just gonna say, it was nice that this episode didn't have to introduce 8 characters, but the Judd character is really, really over the top and annoying, and the show itself is really struggling with a tonal problem. Because they had a really good. They actually have a couple of really good gags. There's coffin related gag, which is really funny and carried well through the show. But that's that's on the weird end of the spectrum. But the Judd character is so far over the top. And I tell you, man, I actually like what's his name? Josh Gad.
Josh Gad. Yeah.
I like him. I actually saw him on stage in Book of Mormon on Broadway once. But I like him as an actor.
It's the wrong role for him.
They're playing that character way too over the top. Yeah. But and they're playing it to a point where he's so far over the top that you're not going to buy a turn for his character later on. So that makes his character just dumb.
Yeah.
It's a
That's kind of his shtick, though. He had a show with Billy Crystal, and he was basically that dude in that show with Billy Crystal.
Okay.
He's just way over the top.
Was it City Slickers 12?
No, it was They Were Themselves, and he was sort of palling around with famous Billy Crystal. He's an up-and-coming stand-up comedian. Hijinks ensue.
Of course. So it's more Mr. Saturday Night 3.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Are we ready? Is it Picard time?
So I watched a cheesy science fiction movie on Netflix on the flight over.
Which one?
It's called Other Life, which is not to be confused with Another Life, which is no good.
Do I need to watch it?
I would watch it. Yeah, it's basically it's like, remember that movie Brainstorm with Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood and everything back in the 80s? It's like that, and it's a little bit of Inception, right? But like, it's actually a much better movie than Inception, you know? So yeah, I would totally watch it. And it has the woman who was Huntress in the first season of Arrow as the main character. And it's good. So I just go in and watch it. I'm not going to say anything about it. So,
and I hear she's an excellent actress.
She's actually not bad, you know, and she's very pretty. So.
They're
all Australian.
So for me, my TV consumption time is probably going to be a little bit minimized because I'm in the middle of the Oscar Death March. I know you've heard me talk about this every year. I try to see every major Oscar-nominated movie. And Kathleen refers to it as the Oscar Death March because you always have to watch, you know, at least one or two movies about the Holocaust or slavery that are all very fine movies and make you feel bad and horrible about things, but they are not fun. These are not
12 Years a Fish.
Yeah, these are not joyful things. But Rob, I did watch The Lighthouse yesterday, and I was thinking you might actually enjoy it because it's a really weird.
It's in my queue. Yeah,
it's got a weird sense of humor about it, and it's not exactly what you think. So it's kind of cool.
Well, you know, that's actually a wonderful, you know, pivot to Picard because seriously, because I'm trying to remember the name of the classic story. It's about a woman who's waiting for her man to come back from the sea, where he is claimed by the waves, and he ends up in Davy Jones's locker or whatever, and then he ends up being, you know, the captain of the ghost ship delivering mail to dead sailors' wives from the afterlife or whatever. Anyway, when I saw the picture that Data, you know, painted.
Okay, you're like right into the spoilers. Data's in this?
Everyone knows Data's in this. I mean, anyway, so, but, you know, Data's painting a picture. Hell, I think he's painting a picture in the trailer. But I think that picture is an allusion to the original story of the woman waiting for her husband, and she goes mad or something, you know. Like,
before we start getting into details, thumbs up, thumbs down.
I enjoyed it. It was okay.
I put it in my category that I put a lot of this stuff. This is where I put the last Star Wars movie, which is good. ... enough.
Sure.
Better than Enterprise.
I mean, that's a pretty low bar, but
yeah,
we're pretty early on. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Better than Voyager,
for sure,
and let them get some sort of story together.
So the thing that
I'm a little worried that it's going to go full CW.
Ooh,
what's that?
No, the first thing that I was saying to Kathleen is there's the first scene where they introduce Dodge, and she is sitting on the couch talking to her boyfriend about something, or her male. I don't remember if it was a boyfriend. I don't remember what the relationship specifically was.
It's her fiance.
Fiance. All right. So the two of them are talking, and they are having this conversation, and I turn to Kathleen and I say, I literally have no idea, since I don't know who this actress is, and I don't remember her from the trailer. So I literally have no idea if one of these characters is important and the other is not, or if these are two of our main characters that we're going to follow, the New Generation cast. Because the only New Generation cast member that I knew was Allison Pill. And she wasn't obviously in that scene. So I'm like, so they could, one of these people could be the star, and the other could literally die in the next 30 seconds. And then the bad guys kick through the door and kill one of them. And I'm like, all right, now I know which one is the star.
Yeah, it'd be a really short show if the guy got stabbed was the star.
Well, you know.
But we're at the point of the show now where, like, we're going to dangle, like, the B plot for the season, and then give you a little coda with the A plot for the season. So now we know that we're going to have to solve the Dodge mystery and the Data mystery. And we're going to probably have to do that on a, like, some sort of Mars thing. And the Romulan crap makes no sense.
Why is the Romulan doing what they're doing, you know? And were the people who were helping him at Chateau Picard Romulans too? It seemed like they were, right?
Yeah, they were his buddies.
They
were people that he had saved. They were members of the Tachyons. Is that their evil?
The Dunkirk equivalent, whatever.
The good guy Romulans.
Well, the Tachyons was the bad people. Whatever their secret KGB thing was, they were members of it, and he saved them. Yeah, whatever it was.
So let me go to my notes. First of all, I initially thought they didn't have drip irrigation at Chateau Picard, but I came to realize I could see the drip irrigation lines. I think that the roboty things were pesticide, and I was like, wow, pesticide in the future? That's something.
I got a quick interjection, Chris. Are all of your notes about wine snob things, or does any of this intersect with science fiction?
Actually, most of it is science fiction intersectional.
To be fair, we don't know that it was pesticides. It could have been nanobots they were spraying, which
Tachyons.
are a better way of getting rid of the pests.
Sure, maybe that's what it was.
The problem with using tachyons on your crops is eventually you get a tachyon-resistant strain of either your crop or your pest. And then you have. I mean, that's probably what caused the potato famine, is that they were overusing tachyons in Ireland.
Yeah, the potato famine in France. I have to admit, I loved the Gotcha interview that he was in.
Not
I
Fox News.
It was just. It's not Fox News. It's not FNN or anything. I'm like, really? That's a little clear. What else? Yeah, I thought that the painting was very, Van der Vecken's wife.
I liked that.
Yeah. And then
I'm going to steal one of Kat's jokes. They said, so they introduced Dodge, the daughter, and then they introduced the fact that they always come in pairs. So does that mean that the other one has to be Dot? And she's like, if there's another one and we get introduced to Dottie before this season is done, I am going to be mad. That was Kathleen's comment on that. Because there has to be Dodge and Dot.
I don't actually get it. I don't get the joke.
Like dash and dot, like Morse code, like binary.
Oh, okay. I get it.
I'm sorry.
I thought that maybe you were going to go for a Dogecoin joke.
Oh,
so
we could do that too. There's been a whole lot of discussion recently on 51% attacks against blockchains, but that's a whole different thing.
Wow.
What's your next Picard note, man?
I just have a couple of notes, and this is kind of spoilery. I said Fallout 4 synths, and then I said the Romulord cube.
The Romulord cube, of course.
But I mean those are obvious. But I mostly enjoyed it, so I didn't do too many notes after the first bit.
My fundamental problem, I guess, is that we watched all of these seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation, and to a lesser extent, I suppose it holds true in later lines or later plot lines before you get to the Next Generation movies, I guess, where the Federation of Planets is like legit good guys, right? They're trying. Like, they sometimes screw up, and obviously, like, Section 31 is like like an evil thing or whatever, a conflicted moral center, but like, they're the Boy Scouts, and they're trying to be the Boy Scouts. And the idea that Romulus would have its sun go supernova, which first of all happened so fast that we had to hurry and rescue people, and like we had no warning of a planet's supernova. Which that seems weird because there are literally episodes of Star Trek where they're like circling a sun, like this sun is going to supernova in the next 100 years. Like that would have been warning that they're going to supernova. But then you have apparently the xenophobic Federation that is just like, no, we will not help you. We are a bunch of cosmic dicks.
Well, they kind of dabble with that at the end of Deep Space Nine. And some of the later ones, but they absolutely embrace the flip in Picard. So
well, I mean, I hate to say it, but like it seems to me what they're trying to do is say, look at all these otherwise good government organizations that are becoming evil under the current administration. I mean, Star Trek's always prided itself on pointing out the errors of man in the present day with cute science fiction stories. So,
like, remember that time that they saw giant Abraham Lincoln in space? That was pretty cool.
He wasn't a giant.
Or the time they saw, the Nazis during the Nazi era, and
what is really pleasurable, and I know that it's easy to have mixed feelings on the modern. Yes, you do, Chris.
Yes, I do.
Pleasure feels good.
But we shouldn't talk about that right now. We should just talk about Picard yet.
There are a series of short films or short episodes of Discovery, and they are in many ways more enjoyable than the actual show Discovery.
Interesting. The web shorts or whatever.
Take a character and run with it for 20 minutes and not be burdened down with all of their stupid lore. I highly recommend. Rainn Wilson does an episode, and it's straight up good. Yep. He does. There's a Harvey Mudd episode, and there's also a Tribble episode, and both of them are like totally blatant fan service, and they work. They are fun.
Isn't it Harry Mudd?
Yeah.
Is Harvey Mudd the school?
I don't remember which Mudd it is. H Mudd. It's H Mudd, right?
It's Hamud.
Hamud.
He's Jewish.
No, those are actually worth checking out, especially those two episodes. But skip all of the animated ones. The animated ones, there's like 2 or 3 of them that are just animated and they're garbage. But so what I've been trying to figure out is the explosion of Romulus's sun the same event that was all wrapped around the rebooted Star Trek
timeline?
That's the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
So this is their efforts to try to reconcile,
right? To make the timelines work. Yeah.
All right.
Well, this is the first post-merger Star Trek, right? So I don't know if you followed the whole saga.
So this is when X-Men are going to show up?
Well, it's the equivalent, right? So, because J.J. Abrams apparently still has rights of some kind to continue the Kelvin crap. But, yeah, it's really hard to follow. There's a couple of podcasts, YouTube channels that cover this in exhausting detail. I recommend you go listen to them.
They are smarter about such matters.
Well, they've been following it longer than us, so.
Well, yeah, and also Star Trek is their jam, and my jam is sadly Star Wars, and not Treks. Yeah. So it's a harder time to be me, although I got the Mandalorian working for me, which is nice.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we are at the 30-minute mark. Do we have any Picard-related or non-related things that we wish to get out in the open?
What happened to the dog? Is it just being taken care of by the Romulans back in France?
Number 1. No, he named his dog Number 1 because that's adorable. That's right. Also, Captain Picard Day poster, which Kathleen actively laughed. Kathleen, to be clear, Kathleen is way more of a Star Trek person than I am.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, but I was laughing because didn't Captain Picard hate Captain Picard Day? And the fact that the Picard Day banner was saved despite, as far as I could tell, between the events of Captain Picard Day and the Picard TV show, I think we've blown up 4 Enterprises. So I feel like maybe the Captain Picard Day banner would have been destroyed in one of those 4 Enterprise crashes.
Well, they probably have like a regular shuttle that just takes stuff to the quantum archives. But the
Memorabilia.
elites of the fleet,
I mean, who keeps physical copies of anything anymore, man? They just make it whenever they want to look at it,
Well, we're
So they
assuming
just replicate a banner.
Right.
Like maybe he took the banner, immediately threw it in the incinerator replicator input, and and that's how things get saved.
Can you correct all of Will Wheaton's typos? Because that kid, man, he couldn't spell for shit.
Really good at math, though.
Really good at math. Can teleport, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Well, that's when he ascended to the Ori or whatever.
I could never figure out what his powers were at the end of that show. They
were convoluted in many, is what they were.
In some ways, you know what they were? He was a harbinger of later story sins. So in some ways, I feel like they reacted to the dislike of Will Wheaton by basically promoting him to ascendancy and getting him off the show, even though I know he left for other reasons, right? But you have a lot of people overreacting to social media bitchiness, nowadays in Hollywood. So I think that was sort of like the first time that
we lost Chris,
which everyone hated. So he buried them alive, But yeah.
All right, Chris, I apologize. You're lagging.
Sorry, I'm in London, in orbit above London. So.
Yeah, they have really bad reception over there. I think you need to dodge a couple of those Elon Musk light bulbs that are next to you.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to throw up the goodbye sign, and we can all go ahead and just have our the rest of our days back. All right.
Sounds reasonable to me.
All
right. My key binding didn't work. Let's see if my mouse. No. All right, gentlemen. This has been episode 412 of Geeks in Space. I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda. I'd like to thank my guests, Chris DeBona.
Thank you for listening to my ridiculousness.
Rob Roseboom.
Yep. See you guys later.
May all of your adventures be exactly as cliched as you want them to be. Engage. I can't stop until the meters hit 0, man.